we're really delighted to be able to continue our series on upholding the dignity of the human person. And we're bringing star teachers, our amazing teachers, who have given us such a richness of what it means to be part, to understand how we uphold the dignity of the human person. We've heard from Christians, Muslims, Jews, many of the religions of India, including the Brahma Kumaris, from whom we're going to hear today, and Buddhists. We've had incredible teachings, and we've discovered that when we talk about the dignity of the human person, there are many things that we hold in common. One of the most important ones for most of us is this idea of the divine within, or the special spark. Although Buddhists don't necessarily talk about the divine, we definitely have this sense of a special spark of humanity, something that is beyond the individual person. As I say, we talk about divine spark in Judeo-Christian and Muslim terms. And that special, unique quality of being human, even though Buddhists, of course, want to uphold the dignity, and many of us do, of all parts of creation. Sometimes we say all sentient beings, sometimes we even talk about the rock and the earth and the water. But there is something special about what it is to be human. And we have tried we have been struggling with the idea of upholding the humanity, our own dignity, and the dignity of those who might be seen as our enemy or as threatening us. How do we do it? We've been struggling. So we heard in the first round of teachings these brilliant, wonderful passages and teachings and ideals from all our sacred, all our traditions. And we have now moved to what we are calling the second phase of these teachings, to ask the question, how do we put this into practice? Alon opened the series, Alon Goshen Goldstein opened the series from his personal point of view. We've had Father Eamon Kelly, and we've had other teachers, and now it's our incredible honor to welcome back Sister Jayanti from the Brahma Kumaris, who was one of our early teachers as I say, in the first round, providing us with sources and inspirations. And I'm going to invite her to join me. Tali will bring her in, so that I can ask her to share with us about how she puts these ideals into practice. I want to ask you, Sister, first of all, thank you for joining us. You're in India, is that right?
Right, yes.
So it's night for you too, getting late. And but I hope that this conversation is and these people, everybody who's here, I know that everybody's so grateful that we thank you for staying up to share with us. And I want to ask you, Sister Jayanti, to share with us, what are your practices? What do you do in your spiritual life and in your daily life that helps you keep in the forefront of your mind the dignity of the human person? Or maybe even the earlier question is, do you? And if you do, how do you do it? So I'm going to ask you to share with us. Thanks so much. Oh dear.
And,
we've lost your, oh, there you are, you're back. Fabulous.
Okay. Thank you, Peta, for the honor of being with all of you. And I see all the other distinguished guests who are with us. My practice is each morning to spend time just going deep within the self and with that divine spark that I am. I am that inner being. And when I stay in this awareness of this inner being, I'm very close to my original qualities of peace, of love, of truth, of purity and joy. And because these are the original values of the self, when I hold this in my awareness, then of course they come into being in a practical way in my life also. Starting the day with that foundation of remembering who I am and who I belong to means that there's an inner state of self-respect, of self-esteem. And if I start with that, then I'm able to hold my head up high with dignity. And when I have that within myself, I'm able to see others with that same respect and dignity also.
Talking about starting your day, sorry, a little bit unstable, so I apologize if we've lost. There we are. You're back. We lost you for a moment. I'm sorry, sister. So your sister Jayanti, you're talking about starting your day with prayer and meditation. Is that
yes,
what I'm
correct?
And
That's
do you mind
right.
sharing how long do you spend, and what are your prayers? What do you
I don't want to scare anyone, but our first morning meditation is at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's local time wherever one is. And then that's for 45 minutes. And then the second one is around 6:15, and that's for 15 minutes. And then we have some teachings for about an hour, and then maybe if there's time, discussion following that. And so starting the day in a very solid way to refresh self, the awareness of the inner being, the connection with the divine, that's really absolutely the basic platform. And then through the day, it's been much easier then when I'm in connection with others to see them also as that shining star, that being of light that they truly are. And when I see that shining star, it's a visualization, it's not anything, but it's an awareness that I create, that the inner being of light, and you and you and you are also that. And when I hold this in my awareness, then of course I'm able to treat them with respect and dignity. And so it becomes a very natural exchange of that awareness then. And what I've found is that if I keep my vision for myself in that awareness, then it's easy to see the other with that consciousness also. And of course, then that vibration of respect also transmits itself to them. And they can, or looking at somebody with criticism or the sense anything else that's negative, of course, that vibration also reaches the other individual. And so it begins with what I'm doing for myself inside, and then it translates how I relate to the other being.
So when did you start doing these practices? Have you always done them, or was there a moment of awareness?
When I was 18, just before I turned 19, spent a bit of time in India, about 3 months, I think. And so that also had prepared me. And then I started to study these teachings properly. And once I'd started to study them, then changes happened very, very quickly after that. And today, many, many years later, I find that I still have to remind myself. So in that first flush of awareness, it was like a new birth, a new beginning. And it was very powerful, very motivating. And then you continue with the journey, and it's not maybe as exciting as it was in the beginning. And so you have to give a little bit more thought, a little bit more attention, and go into it a little bit more deeper. But yes, the change once it happened was very fast.
I'm going to try and pull this out. We are all struggling. This is a very difficult time. Just we in the Holy Land, I find that I'm speaking to people from around the world, and this is a really difficult period in history. And you are a person who has taught us, and we know that you're an enlightened person who's managed to step above. And so I'd really like to draw out more from you about what it is that has helped you. Alon actually used the word vaccine. What is your vaccine? So you've told us that you had an awareness in India, and you told us that you begin your day with this prayer and meditation. But I wonder if there's more that you can share with us about how you came to apply this vaccine to yourself.
One is the recognition, but the second is the connection with the divine. And that connection is what waters this awareness so that it stays fresh and alive. If I didn't have this connection, then just for myself, I would forget. But each day, that connection with the divine is supporting me and helping me move forward. And one of the things that be aware of that my self-esteem is deeply connected with my values. And my talk, where I think I got lost for a moment again. Okay, so I'll just repeat. So where I don't walk my talk, my values are not being expressed. When my values are not in life.
Sister Jayanti, I'm going to make a suggestion. Maybe you do have to turn off your camera, and we'll see whether that allows us to hear you clearly, because it's not working at the moment so well. Let's try that.
Yeah, good idea. Okay, so
you'll need to do it.
Technicians are telling me that it should be okay now.
Oh, okay. All right. We really missed, you were talking about the reminding yourself of the connection with the divine, but I wondered if you could just repeat what you just said.
I'm aware that my self-esteem and therefore my own inner dignity and the way in which I see others with that respect and dignity depends very much on my walking, my talk. And so the inner qualities have to be expressed in my life. And if there's a default, if I'm not expressing those inner qualities, say, for example, I'm a peaceful soul, Om Shanti, this is the theory. But if I'm not experiencing that peace within and I'm not practicing that peace, my self-esteem is going to get lower and lower. I'm going to lose my own respect for myself, and my own inner dignity starts to crumble. And in that state of weakness and insecurity, then I'm not able to treat others with that respect and dignity either. And so it's not just the meditation, but it's my behavior through the day. And so Om Shanti, being peaceful, is one thing, but also just the trust, the honesty that I have. If I'm not being honest with others, my own conscience bites me. And so that reduces my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And that, again, it means that I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I'm aware of it. And so I lose respect for myself. And if I continue to do that, I'm going to feel really, really demoralized. I'm going to feel very, very insecure. But if through my meditation, I boost up that awareness of peace, and I remind myself that peace has to be what I live with, not just what I talk about or what I say in my prayer, but it's got to be my lifestyle. And so as I begin to follow the path of peace and nonviolence and all the other qualities that are the original values of the soul, that express these, and then, yes, my own self-esteem rises. And it's got nothing to do with ego. Ego is everything with the external. My external identity, my profession, my status, my property, my possessions. And this has everything to do with the inner being. And in that awareness of the inner being, then, yes, my self-esteem can actually rise. And when I have self-esteem, then there's no discriminatory behavior. And this is something that's been found by other forms of research also. But the practice through spiritual teachings is that I do this so that then I'm actually able to come to that state, hold my dignity, no matter what else is going on. And somebody may be shouting and screaming at me, but I'm able still to hold my head up high. And I understand, yes, the problems of the world are so huge that it's not an easy task to fulfill, to maintain that inner peace. But I know that if I'm to make a positive contribution to the world, and giving respect and dignity is part of that, then I need to work on that inner level first myself. Does that make sense?
It makes tremendous sense. It's really your insight that's so helpful to us, that you're able to maintain the dignity of the other because you work so hard on your own dignity. And I just, again, asking you to share with us really what you talked about, inner peace a lot, peace and peaceful. You've used that term, but there's other elements of dignity. I wonder if you could just share what you mean by dignity a little more. Thank you very much.
If I can value myself and not depend on somebody else giving me respect, somebody else treating me with dignity, to be able to maintain that self-esteem, then I'm moving towards that state where I hold my dignity. I hold my dignity in my own hands, and no one can ever snatch that dignity away from me. And so it means I have to not just think about becoming peaceful, but also the other original qualities of the self. I have to be able to love myself. I have to be able to value myself. I have to be able to have that honesty, that truth. I have to follow the path of purity. I have to be able to make sure that my happiness is, again, not dependent on what others can say or do or give me, or even what I have externally, but absolutely it's dependent on what I have inside of me, within the soul itself. So if I stoke up these original qualities, then yes, this is the way in which I have dignity. I know that nobody can take these qualities away from me. Anything external.
Yeah, once again, we've had some interruptions, but don't worry, we've got that message. That was a beautiful message, and we appreciate it very much. You reminded me, and I'm sure people who were here last week as well will have been reminded of the wonderful story that Professor Mohammed Dajani shared with us last week about his mother's teaching when they were humiliated or potentially humiliated by having to wait for hours at a checkpoint. His mother told them to remove themselves from the checkpoint and to turn on the radio in the car and imagine that they were on their balcony looking at a lovely view and hearing music. And it was a way of ignoring the potential humiliation from outside and bringing the dignity from inside. So Mohammed Dajani told us about his mother, and both Father Steffi and Father Eamon Kelly told us about the influence their fathers had on them. Who was your teacher? Where did your influence come from?
Daddy Janki.
Daddy Janki.
So some of you know her.
I'm not sure that everybody knows.
Okay, just to explain, Daddy Janki's spiritual journey began very, very early on in her life. And By the time I got to know her, she was in her 50s. I had the fortune of spending 40 years with her, and she was an amazing spiritual teacher and mentor. And so when she'd see me lose my grip and begin to shake and just say, Om Shanti. Or she'd even just look at me, and she herself was totally peaceful, Om Shanti. And so that would calm me down, and that would be an amazing lesson. So just her vibrations and her silence, but of course her classes, her teachings helped me enormously through the whole of my life. She passed away just pre-COVID in 2020 March, and she was 104 at that time. So you can imagine the spiritual power she had accumulated through meditation, through all those years of practice. And yes, I would see how in situations where a person would get very angry, she'd be very, very calm, very, very stable. And then she would treat them absolutely, literally, as if nothing had happened. And she would want them also to forget that there had been an upset scene, because she said that if they keep remembering that scene, that's going to make them feel very guilty, and they won't be able to normalize a relationship with me. So she would work not only to forget it herself, but she would also help them go beyond it, so that again, things would come back to a normal, peaceful state.
You've taken your life as a spiritual guide and teacher. You've become a teacher to many other people. I wonder if you could share with us how you've helped get their own self-dignity and therefore contribute to the world by upholding the dignity of others. How have you helped others? You might want to share an anecdote or an incident with us.
There was a young woman, and I knew her family, her mother-in-law in particular, and I got a phone call early in the morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning, that this young woman with 3 young boys, her children, had just lost her husband. And the mother-in-law called me, and I left whatever it is, and I just went to their home. And this young woman was very, very distraught. And it was like a meditation commentary. I was talking to her about the immortality of the soul, the shining star, and how, yes, the body is no more, but the soul is still here. And you, the soul, are shining. And you have to send out vibrations of God's light and love to the other soul to help that soul on its journey. And when she began to calm down, I think at first it was just simply vibrations of meditation, but she then herself began to understand that her vibration impacting her loved one. And that made her really just step back for a moment. So were able to her children also were then able to go a step further beyond. And of course, they've created a good life for themselves, and she's still very much a friend. She not just somebody I know, but she became a good friend through all of that. And she's been able to lead a good life since then. And so I think it was that moment of giving her that understanding that she has to give out good vibrations. And out of love, this is what she did, but also, again, the awareness of the self and who I truly am. And that gave a lot of help and power.
So the awareness that we're constantly giving out vibrations. We're impacting on the world by the way and you said it before, it's not just the way we speak, but the way we act. We are giving out vibrations, which to
Sister, I can hear you in Montana.
I was waiting for Peta to finish what she was saying, but
yes, sister, we can hear you in Canada as well. Blessings to you, sister. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
And I can hear you in London.
Okay, we lost the connection here. Tali and I went down, so I don't know how it affected everybody, but we're back.
Can hear you in Italy.
Right.
Mm.
This is fantastic.
Okay.
So we have over 50 people on the call, but we will. I apologize, everybody. We seem to be having unprecedented connection problems, but I think that you were telling us the story about the woman who had lost the mother-in-law who called you, the woman who had lost her husband, and how you just explained about the vibrations that a person gives off. And that idea of the vibrations that a person gives off, that we are giving messages by our very being. There is something we are contributing and connecting by our very being, which is it's a fascinating idea that we're impacting on anybody we encounter just by who we are. I wanted to take this opportunity to ask if anybody would like to join the conversation, make a comment or ask a question of Sister Jayanti. Those of you on the Zoom are able to use the hand-raising symbol or simply speak because we might not see you if you would like to join the conversation. And we have a small number of people who've joined us here in person, which we're delighted to have. And if any of them would like to join the conversation, you're most welcome to at this point. Anyone who'd like to make a comment? And don't worry that Sister Jayanti's face disappears because she's here. So from time to time, it's going in and out. This is as I say, unprecedented connection problems, but hopefully we'll still be able to have a full conversation. Is there anybody who would like to make a comment or ask a question? So if others aren't joining, I know that there's great interest, but perhaps then we'll continue to talk to Sister Jayanti. And I'm just going to ask you, you've used words like compassion and we've used dignity, of course, over and over again. But is there a hierarchy of values? Is there are there core values and then other things that you would say that we need to learn and express?
I think that for me, the starting point was just experiencing peace and being able to maintain peace. And it's by no means 100%, but even if you can do it for 5%, 10% of the time and gradually increase it, another door opens and you're able to experience God's love. And I feel that that's the next step in the journey in this hierarchy. because when I start experiencing God's love, then the soul begins to become full. The soul was pretty empty before, but once you experience God's love, because now your mind is more calm, more peaceful. God is the being, the source, radiating love at all times. But to what extent am I able to tune into that and catch those vibrations depends on my own inner state of being. You know, the radio transmitter is sending out the transmission all the time, but depending on how my own wireless connection is, so I'm able to either catch those vibrations and understand, or I'm not able to tune in and I'll say, well, there was nothing.
This is a very good metaphor for what's going on today, of course, with us losing connection. But the idea that the divine radiance or spirit is always there, but we have to be in a state that we can connect to it. So it goes back to working on our own humanity and dignity, enabled to absorb the divine and then radiate out to others. It's a beautiful way of viewing what goes on. I've continued to keep. Yeah, sorry, sister.
I was going to say that, you know, within that hierarchy, so first there's that peace, and then there's the experience of God's love, and the power of love. The power of love is able to bring me to an experience of a glimpse of truth. And so a deeper sense of honesty begins to emerge and carry me forward. And then through that, I begin to experience a state of cleanliness, cleansing of the soul. And I begin to touch into the original purity that the soul used to have, but now again, through the process of God's light, God's love, and also the power of I'm able to come to an experience of the state of purity of the soul. And of course, it's a gradual development. And I become greater and greater in touch with happiness. And I realize deeply that happiness is not something not available from out there, but it's there deep within.
It's happiness coming from within. The invitation for others to join the conversation is still there, but I'm enjoying so much my time with you, because everything you've said seems to work very nicely when you're not facing somebody who is hurting you or who has hurt you. We're not all at that stage where we can just, like they say, water off a duck's back. It's not easy for us. Can you give advice to us when we're dealing with conflict and hostility, how we might start the processes that you've talked about?
I spoke about the time in the morning, which is very, very precious to create that foundation. But then through the day, can I find a way to remind myself? What we do at our centers is play music every hour on the hour, and things just stop for that period of 2 minutes, 3 minutes while the music is on. And it's a chance again to recharge the inner awareness and come back to the state of being that I would like to have. And so that practice is something that helps me at a time when it's a very stressful situation. If I haven't put in the work already, then when it's a time of conflict and challenge, it's very difficult to maintain this. I need to have done my own homework. You know, if you're going to play in a tennis match, you don't just pick up the racket and say, okay, here I am, but you've practiced, you've rehearsed, and you've done it maybe for 3 hours a day at a time. And then you're ready. And then you can cope with however wonderful the opponent may be. And so just the reminder that anything that needs to be developed takes a little bit of time and patience. And I have to do that work when it's not such a stressful time. During a time of stress, yes, maybe I can put in that extra spurt of energy and make it happen. But the most important thing is when there isn't stress, then I'm building up that inner capacity and developing my skills to be able to come to that stage where then when there is a challenge, I can keep that inner state of being.
So this then is key advice, that we need to constantly work on ourselves, on our connection with the divine, on our peace, love, and compassion, the values that you've shared with us, so that we have them ready to utilize when they are truly needed in times of conflict. Again, I'm going to make one final call if anybody else would like to join the conversation. And if not, I'm now going to call on Rabbi Joel Levy to make a response to what you said, and then he will also lead us into prayers. Oh, good. Who is it? I can't see who it is. So
yeah, I just don't find the other hand. Sister Jayanti, thank you so much for your teaching so far and for your presence. I'm very glad that the picture was not turned off. My question has to do with karma. So if we experience enmity, people who are very difficult in our lives and so on, what is the teaching about that? Is there some connection that we are have to take as a teaching? Is there some reason why this is happening? Why is it that violence is happening to us on a big scale? What would there be an explanation about reasons, or only about what to do?
I would take it not just in the sense of past karma, because that makes me inactive. I say, oh, well, it's the past, and so what can I do about it today? But I take it more in the sense of teaching. Here's somebody who's been, because they are difficult, I'm able to see to what extent do I have tolerance within myself. And next time I meet that same individual, if I've learned my lesson, then I'm going to have taken greater power from above so that I'm able to cope in a better way with that individual. And so that test is going to keep coming in front of me until I'm able to pass through that. And probably when I'm no longer impacted by that individual and I'm able to hold my own stable state of being, then the situation changes. I've seen that happen in my life many times, that things come to teach me, and life has, a human teacher. If they try and teach you once, twice, 3 times, they'll say, oh, she's never going to learn, and they'll give up on you, quite possibly. But life will keep bringing the same situation in front of me again and again, so that I really learn and I'm able to move forward in my journey. And so if I'm stuck in the situation that isn't changing, it's because I haven't yet learned that lesson.
Thank you.
thank you. Jean, glad to have you join the conversation. And perhaps you could, for people, introduce where you are and what your religious background is. Maria is both Catholic and Buddhist, and she's in the United States. And Jean.
Okay, I'm a Catholic Franciscan sister, and I'm in Zambia. So this is where I've been for many years. But looking at the whole situation of what's going on in Israel and Palestine at the moment, like so many cases, the natural inclination is, if you hit me, I'll hit you. Revenge. And so this can be the first uppermost desire, And so, of course, it goes backwards and forwards, as we have seen. And so I'm wondering, what would you say about forgiveness and also trying to stop this idea of revenge and coming to forgiveness and then hopefully peace?
I need to have a very big heart to be able to have forgiveness. And that means I need to have had that connection, so I'm able to take absolute unconditional love and fill myself.
What a shame.
Myself with unconditional love so that my heart is so big that I can say, no, this action and reaction is going to be an unending story, which is what we are seeing. But I have to be able to have a big heart and be able to just give a huge amount of love and compassion, knowing that there are things that I've done that are causing a retaliation also. And yes, what I'm experiencing today is tragic, but at some point, one side has to say, I'm not going to react in this way anymore. I am going to take power from above so that we can change this dynamic, this energy of negativity, which continues to increase. And you see that happening also. Violence just escalates all the time. And there has to be a moment in which there's a decision made to be able to forgive. I'm looking at the story of Nelson Mandela and how between the shutting of the first gate of prison, he had a little bit of a walk to get to the final gate, and then he would be out in the open and he would have freedom. And in that little walk, he realized that if he could truly forgive, then he could walk out and be free. And if he could not forgive, he would be free from the walls of prison, but he would not be free inside. And so here's a person who demonstrated that power of forgiveness. And yes, I know there are many other aspects about that situation that also made it happen. But I think that one individual making that decision really saved a bloodbath at that time in South Africa. And so I think that in any situation, back and forth just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And so are we going to allow this to carry on in this way? It's going to absolutely diminish our own humanity. And so my own self-esteem gets lower and lower and lower. And so I have to say, that's not what I want, either for myself or for my family or for my country. I want something better than that.
Thank you. I remember a number of years ago, the Elijah Interfaith Institute partnered with the International Forgiveness Institute for a conference in Jerusalem. And one of the things that we discovered is that all our faith traditions put forgiveness as at a very high level. But the International Forgiveness Institute's approach is that it's so good for you to forgive. That forgiving is so healthy for you. So forgiveness as a value ties in with your overarching theme that you first work on your own dignity. If you can forgive, then you actually are strengthening yourself. It's good for you. Forget the person you're forgiving. It's good for you to forgive. And thank you. That's yes.
There's just one little sentence that we need to remember. Forgiveness is freedom for me.
Lovely. Thank you. That's lovely. Now it really is time to call on Rabbi Joel Levy, who's in Jerusalem, and to hear his response, and also then he'll offer a prayer. Sister Jayanti's going to come back and offer us a meditation in a moment. We'll give her voice a rest and we'll come back to her. Joel, it's over to you. And even though your camera isn't brilliant, I hope we can hear you clearly.
You hear me now?
Yes, we hear you well.
Good,
Thank
great.
you.
So thank you very much for that teaching. I'm just going to shoot from the hip and try to explain why it feels for me like that teaching is coming from left field for me. It's coming from somewhere else. And I think I probably just want to be honest about the kinds of spiritual activity that Jews get up to and how different they are from what you're describing and how that might be a problem. Like, I'm happy to describe something and then maybe what you're talking about is something like the antidote to the problem that I want to present, but I definitely want to present what the problem is that the words that you addressed could be coming to address. The spirituality in Judaism is rarely talked about, I would say, in terms of seeking peace, seeking tranquility. I think it's often presented the opposite way, as taking on as much responsibility as possible, feeling a commanding voice and acting on that voice, and carrying as great a burden as possible.
Mhm.
And any form of retreat from a flawed world would be then not taking responsibility. And many of our daily religious practices are designed to remind us about how flawed the world is and how it's our responsibility to deal with it, not to allow us to seek peace. 6 yamim tavod v'asita kol melachtech v'yom hashvi Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha. 6 days shall you labor and do your work. That gets reflected as in liturgy that lists the flaws of the world over and over and over again, and they're recited, the flaws in the world, and we're constantly called upon to go out and engage with a flawed world, and that's supposed to be disturbing, because the world is disturbing, it's disturbed. And my job is then just to be out there in the world and holding as much of the weight of that as I can. Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha. We have one day a week where we sort of look at the world through a different pair of glasses, which is a little bit closer to what you suggested, which is it is possible to find a form of equanimity, but it's one day in 7 that equanimity is even allowed as a possibility, I would say. And I think human dignity, maybe I'll just say it most clearly, that human dignity can be articulated, is manifest in human potency, maybe, and not in states of consciousness. That you described finding human dignity in states of awareness. But I think the early sections of the Bible talk about human dignity in terms of potency. So the idea of Tselem Elohim, I'm going to say something terrible because, well, we just have to say what we say, the notion of Tselem Elohim, humanity being created in the image of God. The first manifestation of that comes up as a kind of practical guide to life comes up in chapter 9 of the book of Genesis, where it says, Shofech dam adam badam damo yishafech, ki b'tselem Elohim asayt adam. Someone who spills the blood of man, by man will his blood be spilt, because man was created in the image of God, meaning I manifest the presence of God and I find dignity in bringing justice to the world, even if that justice is through violence. And I don't think what's going on is revenge. in the Middle East. I think it's seeking justice. And I say that with enough self-awareness to know that the other side thinks the same thing too. Meaning it's not revenge. It's that there's an injustice which has been perpetrated, and my job as a human being is not to be passive in the face of injustice. It's to be potent in the face of injustice and to resolve it. And my enemies are saying the same thing. And that's where the tragedy emerges. The tragedy emerges because actually maybe there would be a way of talking that thing through, but I don't see that as revenge. I think that's actually a genuine quest for there to be a world of justice, and to be a potent being means to be out and getting your hands dirty in the world in all sorts of ways. And war and violence is one manifestation of that. When we utterly fail to find other ways of dealing with our problems, war is like what humans do at their worst when they're trying to bring justice to the world when everything else has failed. And there's a place for war in most of the monotheistic religions as well, a place for just war. So I suppose I'm coming from a different place, and I really, really enjoyed your presentation, and I feel like I need to internalize what you said. And I suppose if I'm allowed to move into the prayer section gently, then I pray not to forget that I was a human before I was a Jew. I pray not to forget that I'm part of something much broader than myself, and I pray not to get lost in a form of cultural narcissism, which is maybe where many people in the monotheistic traditions end up, a kind of get to be lost in our own traditions as opposed to found in our own traditions. I would pray that to understand that I need to do work on myself before going out into the world and taking on the burdens of the world. And maybe that is something that you said that was most profound for me, the idea that if you try to go out and carry burdens without actually having done your homework, you can bring more injustice to the world, not less. And you were suggesting that it takes profound reflection, self-reflection, and self-knowledge to be able to be a source of goodness in the world as opposed to a source of evil in the world. And that's a challenge for me, that one doesn't immediately assume that one can hear the commanding voice that takes you out and to become potent and active in the world. I pray that I will have the patience to do the inner work that I require. And I also pray that I might take on and reflect on practices that might deepen my own personal inner journey as opposed to the outer journey of responsibility. And that's also something that you spoke about most profoundly. And I think we have people of good faith find themselves backed into a corner in the Middle East, full of pain, full of a sense of injustice, full of a sense of persecution, a sense of vulnerability, and I think the question of how do we get ourselves out of that is something that you spoke of. How do you move beyond, for all of us, a sense that of our own vulnerability and pain, and how can I transcend that? And that's work that we're really, I think, only just starting. So I would pray that the people in my region would find a way of doing the inner practice and having the conversations that we would be required to move beyond our own sense of injustice and our sense of vulnerability and hurt. And that's all of us.
Amen. Joel, I want to thank you so much, because one of the beautiful things about these gatherings is that we don't all nod our heads with everything that's said. We can challenge and we can be challenged. And I want to thank you so much for articulating that, and for articulating the fact that there are so many ways in which we need to come at this question of human dignity and maintaining it in the face of conflict. Thank you so much also for your honesty and your sharing. And again, I think it's one of the powers of these gatherings that we can be open and honest in this space. So thank you very much indeed. I'd like to invite another person who's been a part of our team for a long time already, and also is always offers us an honest and sincerely felt prayer, and that's Fauzia. Chanda, Fauzia, if you can make yourself known or come. And Fauzia has many times offered a Muslim prayer in these gatherings, and I'm going to invite her to do so again today.
Good morning from Toronto. Let me just shift this so the light is better. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, namaste. And thank you so much for both the reflections by Sister Jayanti and by Rabbi. Thank you so much. I'm going to read a prayer. It's from a book and a prayer called The Prayer of the Oppressed. And it's interesting when we read it that whichever side of the situation, the conflict that one is in, one can relate to it from one's own angle. Although it was written by a Moroccan imam, but it can apply to anybody, and one can see it from one's own situation. I don't know if Tali got my email. I just sent it very recently. If she was able to put the prayer up on the screen, because I don't know how to do that, but I'll just start. So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in God from Satan the accursed. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Surely God and his angels bestow benedictions upon the Prophet. O all you of faith, bless him and salute him with sincere salutation. There's a dedication before the prayer begins, and I would like to dedicate personally this prayer today to a group of children that are being described as with the acronym WCNSF. Perhaps you have heard of that, but the acronym is Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. No one. So these are orphans, and they have no extended family, nobody at all left in the entire world. So I bring my attention, and I hope we can all bring our attention to those children and all who have been orphaned on both sides, who may have parents or who may not, one parent or who may not. To you, God of the throne, I raise my only plea, to confess to you, my Lord, what others cannot see. My Lord, by your presence, treat and remedy my heart and the disease. Oh, efface this misery. I can't enumerate the blessings you've bestowed. Forbid, my God, my pardon from being withheld. And if you don't save me from this living hell, what will become of me? Can anyone foretell? O God, you are the real, my port, my only grace, my heart's true love above this dark and deadly place. And now is just an excerpt of this long prayer. O you whose mercy is a refuge for all those in dire need who flee to you to lose their woes. O Master of reprieve, whose pardon is so near, you answer all in need, they know what you do here. We beg for your relief, Redeemer of the weak. You are enough for us, both humbled and so meek. No strength can ever match your awesome majesty. No might can ever reach your just authority. The kings all bow like us to your great sovereignty. You choose whom to abase or raise decisively. Calamities we face are only stopped by you. It's in your hands, they are dissolved within your view. For solace in these states, we turn to you alone, complaining that we cannot make it on our own. Be merciful with us, you know our frailty. O you whose mercy falls like rain unceasingly. Please look upon us now in all our misery, our state as souls oppressed, displayed so openly. Our numbers are reduced, our former wealth effaced, our once exalted rank and high repute abased. They think us without strength and deem us without power. Our numbers in their eyes seem easy to devour. O you whose mighty kingdom never becomes less, we hope to take asylum in divine largesse. Haven of the helpless, upon you we depend. Helper of the hapless, we trust in your godsend. You are the one we call, relieve our heavy loads, repel our life's travails, abolish what corrodes. Your protection only, your providence, that's true. The door is yours alone that everything comes through. You are the only one whose bounteous door we seek. Most generous of givers, O Lord, you are unique. You bring us to the path should we all go astray, and overlook our slips when we lose our way. All created things you hold in your embrace, with mercy and with light, the compass of your grace. Nothing in existence is able to compare with just how base we are in mortality's affair. O infinite in beauty whose endless good befalls, the creatures you have made, so answer all our calls. You alone save drowning souls, so gracious with our states, rescuing the doomed, relieving our dire straits. Constriction is increasing, there is no cure in sight, so hasten to our needs, respond to them, to set them right. Our hands are raised to you, our palms are open wide. We seek sincerely endless grace you do provide. Be gentle with our souls in all you have decreed. Bestow on us what pleases you in what we need. Replace our state of hardship with your gentle ease, and guide us with your power's prevailing breeze. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Fauzia. And as you said, all of us can relate to those words, and very powerful indeed. Thank you so much for your ongoing contribution. It's now my pleasure to invite Rev Karin Ekblom. Karin is with the Swedish Theological Institute, a Christian pastor here in Jerusalem. We're so glad she's back in Jerusalem, and we're so glad that she's agreed to offer a prayer for us today.
Thank you, Peter. I will try to not use my glasses because I know there are some mirrorings in those. Today, the prayer that I've been thinking of, I found the inspiration from the French Dominican father Louis-Joseph Lebret. I've used him before and also in this context when he calls for more fools to come into this world. He's begging God for more fools. And in his prayers, I totally see that the fool that he is talking about specifically, of course, is Jesus Christ, who both Christians and from other religions could look upon as a fool. But I also think that this world definitely needs more fools. Those fools that he's praying for, who are actually willing to go that extra step that we, as in our daily life, don't dare. So we pray to God in these days of war and conflict, and we beg you, God, We beg you to bring us some fools. Bring us those who engage themselves totally, those who forget themselves, those who know how to love through actions and not through words, those who give themselves all the way to the end. We need fools, out of tune and passionate ones. People who are willing to throw themselves into the everyday unknown and uncertain depths of poverty and injustice. We need those who accept the anonymous crowd without any intention to use them as their own stepping stone. We need those who do not use their neighbor for the sake of their own fortune. We really need fools, God, fools here and now, saviors of the poor, lovers of peace, unafraid of the imprisoning powers, unafraid to speak out against any kind of injustice or discrimination, renouncing own comfort and life, willing to risk their own safety for the sake of speaking the truth. This world needs more than ever the fools who dare to be spontaneous, yet perseverant, meek, and at the same time strong. We beg you, God, give us the courage to become those fools. Amen.
Oh, beautiful. How inspiring. Karen, thank you as always. Very beautiful. It's now my pleasure to invite back our featured teacher for this evening or this morning, depending where you are in the world, Sister Jayanti, to lead us in a meditation to complete our gathering.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Before the meditation,
we're having a terrible echo.
is this better now?
Yes, thank you.
Before I go into the meditation, I just want to give a word of thanks. Firstly, to the Rabbi. I appreciated your honesty and your humility in sharing your thoughts. And I understand where you're coming from. But yes, I think that it's important to acknowledge that we have a different perspective, but I respect truly all the things that you have shared and the pain that the region is going through. Fauzia, the prayer was so beautiful, very touching. And Karen, yes, I understand the world does need fools ready to throw themselves into the fire of God's love so that God's love can redeem all of us. Thank you. And thank you, Peta, for coordinating all of this so beautifully. And yes, let's have a meditation. I go deeper and deeper inside myself and come to that sacred space within where there is only peace and love. In the awareness of my eternal identity, I, the soul. It's easy to find myself in the presence of the divine, the supreme, the source. And as I connect with the divine, the light of truth, the light of purity reaches not only me, but the vibrations from the unlimited source reach out to all souls. Truly, you are the one who forgives. You are the one who uplifts. You are the one who transforms. You are the one who brings us back to that original state of being in which every soul can shine. You are the one who reminds us that we are your children, and so we are one family. We are brothers. And yes, we are sisters too. That in the awareness of souls, we are joined together in an eternal bond of connection with love, with respect, with dignity. In the presence of our parent, the Creator, we know that this too will pass, and the future will be as you would want it to be. A world of peace, justice, truth, and harmony. I hold you, the Supreme, in my vision, and I hold that future world that we can all create together in my vision also. I know that with your power and your love, you will make it happen. Om Shanti, peace and love and truth will surely return to this world of ours. The dark night will end and the day will begin once more. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sister Jayanti, for both your teaching and your vibes. You talked about sending out the energy, and I think we've all today benefited from and felt your energy. It's come through the airwaves despite the technical difficulties, and we've really grown and benefited enormously from having you with us today. Thank you, as you also did, to Joel, Karen, and Fauzia for they're part of the team and they're part of the family, and we really appreciate each one of you bringing something very, very rich and important. And I want to thank others on the call as well, both those who asked questions and contributed in that way, but those who were here present because we felt your presence too. Thank you very much for being part of this. We will gather again next week where we'll hear from Dr. Sally King, who's a Buddhist teacher and who participated in our Hanukkah event on light. Some of you will remember, and she'll be coming back to teach about the dignity of the human person. And in a couple of weeks, the first Thursday of the month, we'll be in person in Jerusalem again. Thank you to those from Tel Aviv who are here. There's a few people who've gathered into the room. We appreciate having you here. And thank you to everybody. As I said, it's just been a very rich and uplifting experience. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.